Shabbat Shalom, Mishpacha. This is Rabbi Simon Altaf in the East. Today our Parsha is going to be the book of Deuteronomy, 5th book, chapter 1. Now, before we get into that side of things, I want to give you a brief on my journey. As I came into the land, as I came from outside, as you know that my journey was very long. It was about 48 hours journey, but I arrived here safely, coming through several countries, few stops. Eventually landed quite late at night, and I just came out straight, no events. In fact, I would say I was extremely blessed to not be interrogated as other people were, and I came straight through the country and straight home. Arrived home at about 5 o'clock in the morning. Had left 3 o'clock in the morning 2 days before, so it was about a 50-hour journey, I would say, in total. Anyhow, I kind of stopped on the way and had some food over here before I kind of arrived home. Was starving, coming off the plane. Other than that, lots of things, I guess lots of little things are happening over here, but most of all, this country is going through a transition period, as are many countries. Here I don't really see much signs of lockdown. Everybody seems to be going back to work and doing their stuff. I mean, at least in this city there seems to be no lockdowns, but they do enforce, the police do enforce masks, and if you don't wear a mask, there is a small fine on that for the people. So if you're in a car or a motorcycle, you're not allowed to carry more than, I guess, 2, yourself and a passenger, but you're supposed to wear masks unless there's a fine for about $4 fine if you are not wearing a mask. So things are okay. Baruch Hashem Yahweh, everything is good. I'm happy to be here and continue my journey, because I've got to go some other places too. I've been talking to the students. I had a class the day after I arrived. I had a class. I had some students who turned up at the door. We had a really nice time. There was about 5 of us, and my students were here. There are some of my students are Muslims, as you know, and some of them are from Christian background. So we had a great time together and did our necessaries, did the teaching. They spent a good 4 or 5 hours with me, and I even hosted 2 students here at my house, so they could stay the night, and then they left the next day. I dropped them at the station, so they left for their respected cities. Now, coming back to America, from what I heard is, typically, as you most know, that there's lots of stuff going on over there, chaos in the streets in some parts of the country, with various protests, and of course the gearing up of the election as well. A lot of that going on in the country too, with the President of the U.S. I hear that the President of the U.S. shut down the Houston embassy, Chinese embassy, because there's a little spat between the U.S. and China going on in the South China Sea, in where the U.S. is sending their ships and calling other allies, Japan, yes, Taiwan, and I guess Thailand and Philippines, those kind of guys. So there's a little bit of that going on over there in the South China Sea, and whether they're trying to counter China or trying to push China back, etc., etc. Usual politics. Anyhow, so that's that. But I guess we're going to come back to us of where do we go from here as the people of the books. What is it that we're doing right and what is it that we're doing wrong? I've had several discussions over here with different people, and I've been very clear with them that the Christianity that they are following is basically a hop job type of Christianity. It's a type of Christianity in which you're searching for God the rest of your life, and you're praying to an unknown God, and you claim to have a relationship, but actually your life is nothing but difficulties, suffering, and disease, and all of those kind of things. So I explained to them that blessing basically means that God should have you blessed in your body and in your home and in your travels. And I explained to them that I can take my example. I'm not going to take other people's example. I will just take my example for now and say that God has kept me healthy up to this day, no disease. God has given me a place to stay, and God has made me travel, and I've been able to travel between different sections of the countries without an issue. Now here's the funny thing. When I was coming, I had a ticket with another airline for July the 31st. Guess what? I arrived here, and 2 days later I got a message from the other airline that flight has been cancelled July 31st. So if I had stayed waiting for that ticket to mature and come on that flight, it would be never, because they just cancelled that flight. So my hindsight was that I've got to leave earlier. I planned and scripted that I got to leave earlier, and I left earlier in the month. Rabbi Kifa had told me that you're going to leave earlier, which was true, and I had decided I was going to leave earlier as well. That was my script, and that's how it took place. Now imagine if I had stayed in America waiting for the other ticket to, come back here with that ticket, then it would have been never. Why? Because that ticket wouldn't have happened. I would have had to still purchase another ticket. So in hindsight, as they say, hindsight is 20/20. The wise people, they act first and they do what is necessary. Don't rely on this idea that things that are just set in the future will always be at that date, because it's not always the case. So as I learned, of course, through experience and maturity, that you have to act. Remember, I tell everybody that they have to act in order to get the things they desire in their life. Action and execution. If you don't act and you don't execute, you will never receive what you desire. That's the bottom line. So we always talk about execution. You see, here's the problem, what I've seen in our people. The problem that our people have, they all have their grandiose plans. They all want to be millionaires, they want to be billionaires, but there is no execution. They sit there mesmerizing and dreaming, and there's nothing wrong with dreaming. Dream good and dream big, perfectly fine, but execute the plan. What is the plan? So the plan would be various things. For instance, some of you may end up in big business. Remember that no one became a billionaire or a millionaire by working for somebody. So if you work for somebody, the most you will do is you probably will take home a salary, and you'll feed your family, and that's the cycle that you'll stay in. That cycle will continue month in, month out. Those of you who are on pension, that cycle will stay as well, month in, month out. That's as far as you get. Now, if you desire to become richer, have more money, of course the first thing, part of your plan should be, you write it down. What do you want? So you write down what do you want. The problem that I have seen in most of the people that call themselves Torah people, is this. They don't know what they want for a start. Secondly, they don't write nothing. Thirdly, they might just casually write something, and then just, by the by, just kind of carry on as if nothing's going on, and carry on in this little charade of, jumping from side to side, tree to tree, like a frog, in the pond, branch to branch, and leaf to leaf, and just that's their life basically. And they go on one YouTube video, then to the next, and it doesn't stop. So remember, the first thing you do is in your life is you set a plan. Now here Moses, when he's talking to the children of Israel, the very first thing he mentions to the children of Israel is this. He says, these be the words which Moshe spoke to all Israel on this side, Yarden, Jordan, in the wilderness, in the plain over against the sea of reeds, between Paran and Tophel, and Lavan, and Chazaroth, and Dizhav. There are 11 days' journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. And it came to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moshe spoke to the children of Israel, according to all that Yahweh had given him in commandment to them. After he had slain Sihon, the king of the Amorites, which dwelt in Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who dwelt at Ashtaroth in Edrei, on this side of the Jordan, in the land of Moab, began Moshe to declare this Torah, saying, Yahweh our power spoke to us in Horeb, saying, You have dwelt long enough in this mount. Turn and set on your journey, and go to the mount of the Amorites, and to all the places near thereunto, in the plain, in the hills, etc., etc. So it goes on, basically, it explains things that happened in the past, and how Moses, these people caused strife with Moses. It says, How can I myself alone bear your pressure and your burden and your strife, in verse 12. And then he said, he goes to them, verse 13, Take your wise men and with understanding and known among your tribes, and I will make them rulers over you. And so in this time, the people were happy, they agreed, and they went and did that. But there were also murmurings, they were also complaining and whining about this and that and the third. And so they wanted to do this and they wanted to do that. And they also complained that Yahweh had brought them out of the land of Egypt to kill them, or to hand them over to the Amorite people to destroy them. So again, a lot of complaining, a lot of fear, a lot of fear-mongering was among the people. So Moses is now giving them a summary of what had happened and how these people had complained time and time again. And then, they went against the Amorite people to fight when Yahweh had said, Don't go up because I'm not with you. And they still went up, and then the Amorite people, the sons of Esau, they drove them back and they kicked their butt. And so then they came running back to Yahweh again, to the God of Israel, and they wept and said, help us, and you're not giving us attention, and so on and so forth. And they stayed in Kadesh Barnea many days. So the text continues that, after that point, they were passing through Esau's land, Mount Seir, and that Yahweh had told them that I'm not going to give you any of this land. Then, they also passed through the other lands. So it came to pass that, they came through the Moab land, they came through the Ammon land, and, they saw the giants. Here it mentions that as they were crossing the Ammonites, God told them, do not contend with them, and I have not given you any of their land. And also it says that they were great people, they were tall people, the Zemzumim, and it says that Yahweh destroyed them before them, and they succeeded and dwelt in their stead. And he had said that, the children of Esau, they dwell in Mount Seir, and he'd basically given them particular instructions regarding these people, that how they are to behave and not to do the wrong thing. And of course, when Israel asked to pass through the land of, the Sihon, the king, he refused. He said, I will not let you pass. And that's when Moses had to fight him, and they ended up executing this king. And of course, after that, the other king was executed as well. Sihon was the first one to be executed, as it says here. And then his land was plundered. Then after that, Og was executed as well. He was another one who, had this big bed, and he was apparently a very, I would guess he was a big guy. He slept on a big bed that is mentioned here, and he had a big name, but God took him out as well, because he was part of the giants. He was part of their remnants. He must have been a tall guy. It's mentioned that 9 cubits was their height, and I guess that kind of depends on what you call a cubit, whether you call it 18 inches or whether you call the royal cubit 22 inches. That you'd have to multiply to arrive at a figure. Here, if you measured the cubit, it would arrive at something like 13.5 foot long and 6 foot wide. He was believed to be, basically he was believed to be a 13-foot tall giant. That's very tall. Wow, that is some height. And he was, believed to be part of the, part of the Zamzumim or Anakim giant people. Now there is a story in this, in this thing. And don't just read this as literally as giants. Problem is that most of the people read the Bible literally. I had this discussion with some people and I explained to them that the Bible is not to be read literally. The Bible, as we know it today, you'd heard this saying, oh, you got to read it in context, in history and place. Well, I'll tell you, that's the most ridiculous statement that I ever heard. Why? Because our forefathers from the first century, during the temple, they never read the Bible in terms of as a history or as a context or as some other kind of thing. They actually read the Bible symbolically. Now, when did this new type of interpretation called the Pashat or the literal reading, when did that begin? That actually began as a reaction to David Anan. David Anan was a Cariite Jew in the Middle East, and he's the one who started the tradition of going against the rabbinic Jews, and he said, look, we're not going to follow their rabbinic traditions. We don't agree with them. We're going to follow the Bible literally. We're going to read the Torah and the prophets literally, in context, in line with history, blah, blah, blah. And so that tradition that is called Pashat reading, literal reading, started after the 8th century. Now, after that, the person who was the teacher and the scholar of that region was Sadia bin Yusuf, who was a Gan, who was basically the master teacher over there in Iraq, and he was the one who was the one confronting the Cariite Jews. So he had a lot of back and forth with the Cariite Jews. He was one of the best known scholars. He also wrote the first dictionary for Hebrew and Arabic. He wrote in Arabic and he understood Hebrew as well. So spoke more than one tongue. He did a lot of work in that area. Now my point is this, that this reaction of calling Pashat, and you see today Christianity and everybody else and their dog, they love to read the Bible literally. Problem is this, that the Bible is not written for literal reading. You might say that that's one of the ways of interpreting it, but that is not the interpretation. So when you read about the giants literally, you're going to arrive in several, you're going to get several issues. First of all, they're going to say to you, the unbelievers out there, they're going to say to you, well, where is this 13-foot man? How can he be 13 foot? What is the evidence? Blah, 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 And so you're going to be there for the rest of your life trying to prove a 13-foot man, because they're not going to believe you. That's the problem with reading it historically. Now, what if we read this as we did our ancient times? Remember I told you that the literal physical way of reading the Bible was a reaction of Cariite Judaism. It was not the way we read the Bible in the ancient times. We read the Bible in ancient times symbolically as a spiritual book. We could pick out things in there spiritually that we understood very well what it meant, but it wasn't read literally. This is why today many of you are making this mistake of reading it literally, and then you're getting stuck, and the Christians are doing the same thing, you're doing the same thing. The twain don't meet. This is something I was talking to the Christians over here, the so-called Christian scholars, and I said that you can take your scholarship and you can throw it in the bin, in the garbage tin, because that's where it belongs. Because the way you read the Bible this is not how we read it in ancient times. So, what does that mean? When we read about giants, giants could be not necessarily physical people that arise in our path, but giants could be problems, areas of problem, areas of execution, areas in your life. I mean, a giant in your life could simply be like somebody who's unemployed. He can't get a job. That's a giant to that person. He can't make the job. He can't make the jump into, making a living. So what is that? That's a giant. Could be called a mountain as well, because you can't jump over the mountain. So what does he do? So he has to remove that giant. He has to slay that giant in his life. So we have to take symbolic meaning. So here, as I said to you earlier, that you must learn to write your plan, know what you want. I mean, it don't have to be exact. You don't have to say, well, I need exactly $10 million. I mean, you could vary that. You could say, well, it'd be nice to have 5 million, but I think I'll go for 50 million. You can do that. So the plan is variable. You can vary it, and you can write it with pencil, and you can, change it as you desire. And there's no problems about that. Nobody says that, hey, you've written 5 million, how can you now change it to 50 million? So you write your plan with a pencil and with an option to change it later as you desire. But you have to execute that plan. Don't just write it and forget about it. Execute it. How do you execute the plan? First of all, I'm going to take you through steps now. It is very important that I've been teaching these steps to some of my students here. We have to deal with negativity and limiting beliefs in our life. Some of us might be carrying limiting beliefs. One of the limiting beliefs might be that I can't do a job or I can't run a business that is over 100,000 cap. You might say, well, the most lucky I can get is I might get a business that makes me $50,000 a year. That's a limiting belief. So if you carry that limiting belief, the first thing that you have to do is remove your limiting belief. You have to remove it. You have to exercise to remove it. How do you do that? Well, very simple. When you write your plan in pencil and you put down that I'm running a business that is worth $10 million, that is one way that you start addressing your limited belief in your mindset. So you write your plan, $10 million, and you say that I'm going to make, in my business, I'm going to kickstart it. You're not setting any caps here. You're going to say, I'm going to kickstart it, and my business is going to be $10 million, kickstarted. It started, it's running, it's making 10 million. After that, I'm going to raise it to 100 million or even more. Whatever that number is to you. Sounds good to me. Because whatever you believe is possible. Whatever I believe is possible. Both of us are right. Both of us are not wrong. So you have to set your beliefs right. Now, let me explain to you, because I lived in America, and of course America is my country as well. I live there on and off, of course, when I'm not out of the country. So the question is this: what does my behavior indicate? Remember we went through poverty consciousness in the last 2 or 3 or so lectures. I dealt with poverty consciousness. What is poverty consciousness and how it affects you? You see, if you say you're going to have a $50 million business, well, let's just come down to a lower figure. Let's just say you're going to say, I have a $10 million business, yet you live in poverty consciousness. And in order to understand what poverty consciousness is, go back to my last 3 weeks lectures and re-listen to them so you can grasp what is poverty consciousness. If your behavior is save 2 cents from a dollar, or trying to make 2 cents out of a dollar, then that is typically poverty consciousness. That's a limiting belief. You will never get off the ground. If that's your limiting belief that you live in, you will never get off the ground. Forget about $10 million. You will never get off the ground with $1 million business, because you're living in poverty consciousness. And I've sat with people and I've heard them make these grandiose statements that they like to be a millionaires, and they like to have 50 million or 200 million, and they like to do this, that, and the other things that they like to do. That's all good. Nothing wrong with people making such statements. Nothing wrong with it, practically. But I've never seen them work on it. You see what I see? When I look at the execution, it's around 0. So when you produce an egg around 0, then the result will be 0. 0 times 0, by the way, is 0. 1 times 1 is 1. So when God told us to go forth and multiply, this is the first commandment in the Bible. Go forth and multiply. Well, of course, it not only relates to marriage, children, but it also relates to business, also to your well-being, also to what you want to do in life, to go forth and multiply. Whether that could also apply to businesses, not just a business, businesses. with an S, more than one business. So first and foremost, what you must do is have a plan. Write that plan down. Please write it down. Now ask yourself the question, do you have limiting beliefs? And chances are 9 out of 10 that may be from childhood, possibly from parents telling you that you're no good or you won't get there, or some other person saying that to you. You may have a part of that in your mindset of a limiting belief. How do you deal with the limiting belief? Well, like I said, by your outward action. Now, your outward action is this: you've written your plan. You said, you know what, I've got a $10 million business to start. That's what my business is going to be. I'm going to hit a 10 million ceiling, then after that I'm going to expand it further. This is my first sky, my second sky, then the third sky. I'm going to go up 10 skies, 10 heavens. I'm going all the way to 10 heavens. So you start with your first heaven, 10 million, that's your cap. So my cap for start is 10 million. Once I hit 10 million, I'll raise my cap. So you always have the ability to raise it. Now you go to the second part, you say to yourself, am I dealing with limiting beliefs in my family? And if the answer is yes, you start behaving rightly. In other words, if your behavior, as I explained in the poverty consciousness classes, was to try to save 2 cents against a dollar, then you need to drop that. Because you need to because remember, money is energy. And everything at the molecular level, money, car, any other object at molecular level is energy. Now you got to align that energy with yourself. So the first thing you do is you write your affirmation. Your affirmation might be that I have a $10 million business. That might be your affirmation. That simple affirmation, I have a $10 million business. Or, why do I have a $10 million business? Affirmation works both ways. It could be a question, it could be a statement. Both ways works, and you repeat it. And what you do is you pick up your affirmations. You've written maybe 15, 20 affirmations that you want to accomplish in your life. It could include a home, it could include a nice car, and other things that you require in your home. Furniture maybe, different, new kitchen, whatever it is that you desire. You've written your affirmation, and you are now about to read those affirmations. Now remember this, affirmations must be read for Hebrew people, the children of Israel. You must read your affirmations facing the north. Do not face the south. Because if you face the south, you will lose energy, you will lose money, you will not make money. So remember what I just told you. Stick to that. For us, north is the throne room of God. That is where our action takes place. Now, you could face the east from America because that's where Jerusalem is. You could do that. But my advice, stick to the north. No need to face east. If you're going to pray, if you're going to sit down and bow before the Most High, then sure, face the direction of Jerusalem. For prayer, for sitting down, you can face the direction of Jerusalem, but I would also encourage that you have two choices for your affirmation, because remember, prayer is imagination. So, what do? You face the east for your imagination. Remember, prayer is imagination. Whenever the word prayer comes, that's imagination. Imagination is God. Awareness is God. So in order to connect to God, try and face the east when you sit down to do your daily, whether it be meditation, whether it will be such as your imagination act. Now, I'm talking to people in America, by the way, not people in England and Europe. If you are in England or Europe, then Jerusalem to you is southeast. So you'd have to face southeast to do your meditation and then to do your imagination. Now that's the key part. It's a key component of success or failure. Now you do that every day. Now every day you wake up in the morning. Now remember, as I said, early hours matter. So early hours are going to be anywhere between 3 o'clock a.m. to 5 a.m. That is the ideal time for you to get up. And it's the ideal time for you to start doing your meditation session and then start putting your imagination into action. So your midbrain meditation should be done during those hours. And then if you are doing it, then that's great, fantastic. Carry on, don't stop. You write down maybe you write down 3 items of imagination that you want to bring in, desires in your life, and maybe you do those 3 during that time. Now there are 2 techniques that you should apply in order to remove the giants from your life. Number 1 technique is this, that you can do your meditation session like at the first of the month. Today is the today is the, 25, so the Sabbath. So you will wait till the first of the month and you kickstart your imagination for 8 days. You do your 8 days daily imagination, then you stop. Then you release, detach, and you let go of the whole month. And that's the meditation session and the imaginative session where you are giving yourself a break, adjustment. Now there's a second method that I didn't speak about, and I'll speak about that today. That method is where you do the midbrain meditation. You activate your midbrain. Once your midbrain is activated, you then do your imagination right in the midbrain area. You focus, you bring your focus to the midbrain, and you start doing your imagination. Now that imagination, by the way, you do daily, non-stop. And for that imagination, there is a detachment period. And that works the other way. How does that work? I do this imagination daily for 22 days. 22 characters of the Hebrew character set. 22 days daily. Place the imagination in my midbrain, and I do it. And that's my focus going to be. Every time I do imaginative act, I place it in the midbrain. And I see exactly what I want, and I do all the necessary imagination technique as I've explained to you in many lectures before, and then I drop it. I go up to 22 days. Then I have 8 days left to the end of the month. Maybe possibly 9 days if it's 31 days in the month, or a little less if it's February. So what you do, after 22 days, you release for 1 week. And you look at the action. You look at where are you, at the end of that month. Where are you? Do you see shaking and movements? Do you see, an earthquake? Meaning, do you see movement? If you're seeing movement, then, if it hasn't come to pass, if it's come to pass, you remove it from your list. You go on to the next one. If it hasn't come to pass, you do the same the next month until it comes to pass. Now, remember, I created another meditation before, I guess before I left America or while I was leaving. I created another meditation which was sound vibration, in which you use certain sounds. It was very short. It was maybe about 3 minutes long at most. It was just sound, and all it did is that it awoke different areas of your brain, especially the midbrain, third eye, etc. Now I also may have spoken about this earlier. Then what you do is you will use your third eye may be stagnant. Maybe it hasn't been utilized for so long that it's stuck. So in order to activate your third or wake it up, what you have to do is there's 2 ways. Number 1, you can put turmeric, get some turmeric powder, yellow powder. You mix it up with a little paste, half a spoon, and you put it on your third eye, forehead, between your 2 eyebrows. You put it over there, just above your eyebrows. And you let it sit there for 10 minutes, let it dry out, then wash it, but you're going to get a nice yellow mark. Now you may not be happy to go around outside your home and show a yellow forehead. So the other way to activate your third eye, soothe it, is to use frankincense oil. You get your frankincense oil and you rub it on your 2 drops on your third eye daily. And you also rub it on the side of your nostrils where you have the sinuses. So rub all of that on the 1 drop each on the sinus, on the left, 1 drop on the right, and 2 drops on your forehead for the third eye chakra area, and rub it there between the eyebrows. And you do that for maybe, I would suggest, for at least 10 days minimum. That 10 days will help to activate your third eye. Because if it's something you've never done, if it's the first time you're about to do it, and maybe you're one of those people who's not quite sure where the third eye is, by all means Google it, you'll see where the third eye is. But there is an issue of activating it. It might be hard area, like it's not doing optimum. So for optimum, you're gonna work it like that for 10 days. Once you work it for 10 days, you're ready to go. Now the negativity part. The negativity in your homes, and almost every home can have negativity. How do we deal with negativity? What you do is you get the camphor essential oil, and you put 2 drops in your little burner in the morning. I'm not talking about a diffuser. Diffuser, it just gives, it just blows air through it. Don't do that. You don't want to blow air through it. What you want to do is you want to get a little burner. We spoke about the oven kun, this little oven in which you can burn stuff with a little, piece of wood or a piece of other stuff in there. That you can also do with the frankincense, with the camphor, and a couple of other herbs you can utilize in there. However, let's just say that you don't have that, and you don't just do the easiest method. That is, then you take the camphor and you burn it on your burner, and you put 2 drops basically in your home. Put 2 drops. The way I would advise is like this. This is the way I would advise it. Get a little spoon, like a spoon that's not going to burn your hand. A little longer spoon, like a one that you stir your pot in. So you get a little longer spoon that's stainless steel. You put 2 drops on there, and in the evening after sunset, you burn that on your stove. And once you put it on your stove, because you might have electric or gas stove, and that will actually catch fire. When you burn it, and either will evaporate or it will catch fire. Anyway, when it catches fire, it disappears, it burns. That will remove negativity in your houses. The second thing you do for prosperity is you buy some rose petals dried. Take a rose petal and put 2 drops of camphor oil on it in the middle of your room or wherever you sit in your living room. Sit on your table, take 2 drops of this camphor, put it on the dry leaf, and this is going to be done after sunrise, by the way, in the morning, daily. This is a daily action for 40 days. And so you take the 2 drops and you burn it on your little spoon again until the rose petal and the camphor is gone. That is a tremendous good way to deal with prosperity, bring in prosperity. And the second part which I told you was the part where at night after 6 p.m. or after sunset, whenever your sunset is, I'm just saying 6 p.m. because it might be at 6 p.m. or after. And if your sunset is after that time, whether 6, 7, 8, you take the camphor, the 2 drops, go to your stove or cooker, and you burn the 2 drops there for 40 days. Start counting, write this number down. Okay, it's 40 days, I'm doing this. Then this will remove negativities from your life, and this will also bring in prosperity in your home. So remember, you might be all saying, oh, it's too much work, and this, that, and the third. Look, you sit at your TV every day. Some of you might be sitting on your TV, on your screen, and either watching a movie or watching a soap opera or something. You spend your time doing that. You're quite happy to spend 2 hours, 3 hours sitting there watching a movie or watching a soap opera or whatever. That's also work. You're happy to do that. So remember, that work don't give you nothing. That maybe give you some information, maybe it gives you some edification, maybe it gives you some happiness to do that. And that's okay, that's great, no problem. But this work, what you're doing, is going to change your life. It's going to bring in, happiness in your life, prosperity, money, new furniture, new things, new cars, new home. It's going to change your entire life. So why wouldn't you want to do this? I think 100% you should be doing it. 100%. So very important that you utilize this in the morning for 40 days. If you don't have camphor oil, it is easily available. I believe even Walmart might be selling camphor oil. I think I've seen it over there somewhere. I know they sell frankincense for about $5. So you can buy frankincense at Walmart. You might be able to get camphor. If not, you can order it online. eBay.com or Amazon.com. They sell these kind of stuff. eBay has plenty of it. So just go to eBay and find a camphor. Camphor is it's inexpensive. It's about $6 a bottle, $6, $6.99, depending on the size you get. Get some for yourselves and kickstart your life. Kickstart your life. Execute. These are the giants that you have to remove in your life. And one of the giants in your life is exactly that. It may be your next hurdle. And that's a 13-foot giant. Like this guy in the Bible that describes this giant. So Israel had to overcome the giant. So how do we overcome it? Well, we're not fighting with swords over here these days. And we're not fighting with guns either. We are fighting with, this is a spiritual warfare. We're dealing with it spiritually. So we're dealing with it the best way we know how. And that is exactly as I told you. Using camphor oil. So camphor and frankincense. Now, if you already have your Havan Kun, this little box, this little metal instrument, you can do it in a don't attempt a plastic, whatever you do, because that'll burn plastic down. But you can do it in a little pot made of clay. And by the way, I came over here yesterday. I went to a shop and I saw a shop on the way home, and I saw the shop selling clay. These little clay pots. And I said, we're going to stop and buy that. I said to the Aisha, we're going to stop and buy that clay pot, that clay tray over there. I said, I can use that for my burning camphor and, other stuff in there in the morning. So she said, okay. And we stopped and she went and she got it. It was inexpensive. My goodness, it was like maybe not even $2, like that cheap. So I got that little, the clay one. It was a little clay tray, with edges slightly higher. And I can use that clay tray now to put some piece of wood in there, even, cow pat, dried cow pat if necessary, and light a little fire. Then, add some camphor to it, add some myrrh to it, add some frankincense, and I could just burn that and allow the smoke to go into my house. That is tremendous energy. That will bring tremendous energy into your house. You don't know how much energy it will bring. And let me give you another secret from here. Fire brings in wealth into the house. Fire. That is why we're burning this little fire. Okay? So I'm gonna leave it at this point. I'm gonna thank you for listening to me. I don't want to overwhelm you with information because there's a lot of information in this audio. I'd encourage you to go and listen to this audio more than one time. Make sure you get the application and the execution right. Because knowledge, you're taught that knowledge is power, but that is absolutely a false statement. Knowledge is only power when it is executed. Knowledge sitting in your cabinet, in a form of a book or an audio is not powerful. It has no power because no one's executing it. So unless you execute the knowledge, you will not get the power that you desire. So I encourage you all, family, children of Israel, Mishpacha, I encourage you to do what I said, is to start practicing the knowledge. Start executing the knowledge that you're acquiring over here, and God is going to bless you tremendously. You're going to get tremendous blessing out of this, but you got to apply the knowledge. Listen, I went the other day, I went to look for a printer in town, and I didn't know about this car zone. There was like these cars all parked around me. And I just parked my car there as well. I thought, well, everybody else is parked over here. Maybe I can park here as well. And I parked and I went to the printing store. And when I came back, the car was gone. The police had towed it. I was like, okay. I asked the guy over there. He said, did you see this car where it went? He said, yeah, the police towed it. It's just down there. You have to go to the police station now. I said, okay. I went to the police station. I got a little ching-chi, got a little ride. This little cab, three-wheeler cab. And I went to the police station, came out, and there was a policeman sitting down there, writing everybody's number plates and all of that. And then a man, there's a policeman right behind that one. He was just standing there. He wasn't doing anything. He saw me. And I was right at the back of the queue. And he picks up a piece of paper from the table, and he comes to me and says, is that your car? I said, yes. He said, okay, look, we're not going to fine you for this car because you're parked in a wrong zone. We won't fine you. He said, all I'm going to do is you can take your car, I'm just going to charge you for the loader, for the man who brought it here. And he said, the charge for that is inexpensive. And he said, oh, you're from the other city. I said, yes, I'm from the other city. And he said, oh, okay. He says, no problem. He says, let me only charge you, it was about $1.50, believe it or not. He charged me $1.50. And, he was so respectful to me. And he said, you can go drive your car away. No, he just gave me a piece of paper. He says, here's a piece of paper. You don't, we're not doing nothing for you. And we're not filing charges against you or anything. We're not asking you to go to court, because they do. They do file charges against people who park illegally, and they do ask them to come to court, and then they make it very difficult for the people, and they have to stand in lines over there and all that. So he told me, no, I'm not doing any of that. He says, oh, you're a guest in the city. He says, okay, signed off, there you go, sir, you're clear. So I thanked him. I thanked him and I said, thank you very much for your help. Appreciate it. And I gave him a blessing and I left. I said, God bless you. So at the end of the day, look, that is what I'm trying to tell you, is that is the blessing of the Kohen. The Kohen is already blessed. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Wherever I go, people stand, and people will come to me rather than me go to them. I've seen this happen so many times over here. That is an indication of our obedience to the God of Israel and His laws. So execution is must, family. Must execute. Must not be discouraged. Just because it takes a little longer, a little time for you to get your desires, don't be discouraged. You got tremendous blessings ahead. And I'm going to, attempt to make sure that I give you some information every week so you can get there. I'm not definite that that is what happened, but it's a possibility that it may be what has happened with Rabbi Kifa, that he had to go out. So let me first start with, we'll do the best we can over here, and if he turns up, then I'll hand it over to him. If not, I'll try the best I can to continue. We can maybe do at least a little bit study, if not too long. So my first question is this: you can all hear me right now without breaking up? Okay, good. So my second question is, do you guys that are attending right now, do you guys have any questions from last week? No questions from last week, okay? So let me, because our Parsha today is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 1, I believe, is our Parsha. So let me open the Bible. Let me open the Abrahamic-Faith Bible so I can go there, and I can then kickstart the Parsha, Devrim 1. Okay, these be the words which Moshe spoke to all Israel on this side of Jordan, in the wilderness, in the plain over against the sea of reeds between Paran and Tophel and Lavan and Hazeroth and this half. There are 11 days' journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea, and it came to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moshe spoke to the children of Israel according to all that Yahweh had given him in commandment to them. After he had slain Sihon the king of Amorites, which dwelt in Heshbon, and Og the king of Bashan, who dwelt at Ashtaroth in Eduriyah, on this side of the Jordan, in the land of Moab, began Moshe to declare this Torah, saying, Yahweh our power spoke to us in Horeb, saying, you have dwelt long enough in this mount. Turn and set your journey and go to the mount of the Amorites, and to all the places near thereunto, in the plain, in the hills, and in the vale, and in the south, and by the seaside, to the land of the Canaani, and to the Lebanon, to the great river, to river Pharat, the Euphrates. Behold, I set the land before you. Go in and possess the land, which Yahweh swore to your avot, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, to give to them and to their seed after them. And I spoke to you at that time, saying, I am not able to sustain you by myself. Yahweh your power has multiplied you, and behold, you are this day as the stars of the Shemaim for multitude. Yahweh Elohim of your avot make you 1,000 names, 1,000 times, so many more as you are increased, and as he has promised you. How can I myself alone bear your pressure and your burden and your strife, take you wise men and with understanding and known among your tribes, and I will make them rulers over you. And you answered me and said, this thing which you have spoken is good for us to do. So I took the chief of your tribes, wise men and known, and made them heads over you, captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over fifties, and captains over tens, and officers among your tribes. And I charged your judges at that time, saying, hear the cause between your brethren, and judge with righteousness between every man and his brother, and the foreigner that is with him. You shall not show partiality for persons in judgment, but you shall hear the small as well as the great. You shall not be intimidated by the face of the man, for the judgment belongs to Elohim. If it's too difficult a case, then bring it to me, and I will hear it. So, in a nutshell, what we have is we have the Parsha that Moses is declaring at this point to the Israelites that they are at a particular part of their journey, and he is now instructing them of what had happened in the past, and he's doing a summary and summarization of the past and the present, and telling them, look, this is what happened in the past, this is what I did, this is how I spoke to you then, this is what's happening now. So you said this and I said that, and this is what then we were commanded, and we followed what we were commanded, we followed, and here we have now arrived at such and such place, and it tells you how many days, it tells you what happened, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, it tells you that, it talks about the sending of the spies. It says, that they departed from Horeb, and it was a great and terrible desert which they saw, and it was by the way of the mountains of the Amorites, and they, came to Kadesh Barnea, and it talks about the mountain of the Amorites, and it says that God had set the land before them. God had also warned them that He was not going to give them the land of the Ammonites and the land of the Moabites. He wasn't going to give them that land, because He said that land and all the things there belonged to those people, and they were not to be distributed to Israelites. So God also said that the only people that entered the land, the generation that entered the land, wasn't the generation that left Egypt. And God particularly points out in this Parsha that Caleb and Yehoshua ben Nun are the only two people from the previous generation that had followed God wholly and came into the land. Joshua the son of Nun. And then it also says that the people tried to storm the land, and they failed, and they fell because they did not listen to God, because God said, I'm not amongst you, I'm not with you, so don't go up. But they didn't listen, they still went up, and they got defeated. Then God told them that, you are to pass through the land of Esau, who dwells in the Mount Seir, and God said that, do not provoke them, I haven't given you their land. And God tells them that you are to buy food for money, and you are to buy water for money. And you shouldn't be stealing, and you shouldn't be taking things for free from there. Now here's the interesting part. The interesting part in this Parsha is that God at no time commanded the Israelites to take stuff free. He tells them to pay for it. And unfortunately today, we get calls from people and emails saying that, can we send them free stuff? Can we give them free Bibles? Can we give them free talents and free this and free that? You see, Torah doesn't speak about free. Torah says you must pay for it. Because as I spoke to you a number of times on this, about the free doesn't mean free. If you are going to be living in free stuff, then that means you have a poverty mindset. It is only the poverty mindset people that require free. Because people who pay for it, because remember, money is energy. And the only way you can circulate the energy is by, going and circulating in the superstores, or in the marketplace, or in the bookstores. So what you're doing is you're circulating the energy. Payments that you're making is circulating the energy. So it goes around and it comes around back to you. When you don't circulate, when you don't go and do the necessary purchases, then you're not circulating anything. So if you're circulating zero, if you're asking for things free, and that means you're not circulating anything, then the round trip return is zero also. You might have noticed that if you go into a store and you purchase stuff, they might say to you, hey, buy one and get the second one free. Or they might say to you, pay for one and we'll let you have 50% discount on the second one. See, that basically indicates a thing about circulating money, that it derives more value. You get more value out of what you circulated. But when you are not prepared to pay anything, then where is the value? Where are you going to find the value for it? This is why it's very important to understand that in order to become wealthy, first you have to deal with your limitations, your limited beliefs. A lot of people today are walking with limited beliefs. And a limited belief, you may not even know it, but you're carrying limited beliefs. And limited beliefs come in different forms. A limited belief might be that I can't afford a $100,000 home, or maybe I can't afford a $200,000 home. It could be I can't buy a £400,000 house. I can only buy a £200,000 house. Problem is that in England you can't even find a £200,000 house these days. So your limited belief is already put a cap on you, because it wasn't God that put a cap on you. You put that cap on yourself. You said my sky, my limit is X amount of money. This is why most people today, they fail in businesses, they never take off, because they already have a limit. And they hit their limit before they even go out. So we have to first remove our limit. We have to remove limiting beliefs. We have to remove negativities that we carry. And negativities are not something that we acquire by ourselves. They usually are acquired through maybe parents, relatives, friends. If you spend your time with negative friends, negative relatives, negative parents, you will also pick up negativities from them as a result of your negative association with these people. And then what happens is they creep in. They creep in. It's like an infection of the coronavirus. You get it and you don't even know you got it, and you're carrying it in your midst, and then you have to deal with it. So when I came over here and I was speaking with people, and I was talking to some families, and I already could see that they're dealing with a lot of negativities, a lot of negative issues. One of my students over here was dealing with the negative issue of having a hard time trying to find a job. Educated man, fairly well educated, but can't find the work that he desires. So I explained to him that the very first thing you need to do is to deal with the negativity in your home. First you deal with the negativity, then you'll get the job you require, because then you will work it the right way. So he went to work. I explained to him what he needs to do. He went and got the necessary stuff. I gave him two things. I said, go and buy camphor. Bring camphor when you buy it. You are to burn camphor in your home twice daily. Once in the morning in the sun, with the sunrise, and once in the evening with the sunset. And you are to burn it 2 drops of oil or 2 pieces of camphor, because you can buy camphor here which as whole pieces. So I explained to him, you need to burn 2 small pieces in the morning and in the evening at a particular location, and that will help you to remove the negativity in your house. And I said, just do that. 40 days task. You do it for 40 days. So he went to work. He even made a little video. He sent it to me. He said, this is what I'm doing. Am I doing it the right way? I said, yes, you're doing it the right way. And he would burn that over his stove on a little picture, and he sent it to me, and I said, that's good. Continue with this till 40 days are up, then we'll discuss further updates. And even the first week, when he was doing it, only a few days passed, and he came to me and he told me, he said, Rabbi, I've already made progress. I was looking for an interview. I wasn't even finding an interview, but after doing this for only 2 days, I've had an interview come up. And I'm going for the interview, and I'll await the result, and I'll let you know. So he went to the interview. When it turned up last week, this week, he did the interview. He came back. He told me he's done the interview, and now he's waiting for the employer to let him know what happens next. So again, this is something to do with negativity in the home and limited beliefs. So you got to deal with negativities first. All of you that you see struggles and you see problems, you have to deal with negativity in the home first. As I explained to that man, that you get camphor. In America, in England, camphor oil is readily available. You get camphor oil, you put 2 drops on a little pitcher, on a little metal spoon, that you can just place in front of the stove, on the fire, and let it burn. By the way, that is the evening sunset version. And you do that at sunset. And the other one that you do, you take a dried rose petal, and you put the 2 drops of camphor or the 2 drops of oil on it, and you burn the dry rose in the middle of your room. In other words, wherever you sit, whatever you call your living room, you burn it there, but you do that after sunrise. 40-day task. That will bring in abundance into your house. That will also remove negativities. Very, very important. Part and parcel of what we do. So that is one way that you deal with negativities. Now, of course, the Torah here in this passage talks about giants, talks about big mountains, and talks about obstacles. A lot of the time, you're going to find you're going to have to deal with obstacles in your life as well, and giants and mountains. And we know that in one particular place in the New Testament, that Jesus of Nazareth, Yeshua, he also spoke about moving of mountains. He spoke to his disciples, and he also indicated how to move a mountain. And we can look at that verse as well. We can go and pick up that verse. Give me a moment and I'll find it here. In Matthew chapter 17, verse 20, let's take the one in Matthew 21. Matthew 21:21, it says, and Yeshua answered and said to them, truly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only do what was done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, be taken up and cast into the sea, it will happen. In Matthew chapter 17, verse 20, it says, and he said to them, because of the littleness of your faith, for truly I say to you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you or to you. So clearly from here, a number of things are evident. Do not read the Bible like a storybook. The problem is that a lot of the people today are reading the Bible like a storybook, a history book. The Bible, for one, is not a history manual. Second, is not a storybook. The Bible is spiritual, and it must be understood allegorically, symbolically, because the Bible has numerous symbols. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this, that back in the day when the temple existed, we're talking about first century, during Jesus' time, the Bible was not interpreted literally. In Hebrew, they call it the Peshat reading, which is literal reading. And when you say, oh, there's over there, and a donkey is standing over there, the people read it literally, a donkey is standing over there. But the Bible is not meant to be read like that. The Bible wasn't read a literal book, as many of you do today. You think it's a storybook. I can read a story here out of this and make a story out of it. In fact, as history has it, up to the 8th century CE, the Bible was read as a symbolic book. The Torah, the prophets, everything else was read symbolically, in sign language. And nobody read the Bible literally. Today you'll hear people saying, oh, read the Bible in context, read it by the history, the context and the people and the time. See, they all sound very nice words. It sounds very nice. Oh yeah, read it historically. Read it according to what happened that day. And read it literally. But actually, that is if you read the Bible like that, that's the worst way to interpret the Bible. Our elders did not interpret the Bible literally. In fact, it was a reaction that caused literal Bible interpretations. The reaction of the Jews occurred back in the 8th century when Sadia Gaon was a head teacher in Iraq and Babylon, and the first Karaite Jews appeared on the scene. David Anan was a Karaite Jew, and they started to interpret the Bible literally, and they started to criticize the other Jews because the other Jews were not doing that. And of course they had Rabbinic Judaism, they had their own oral Torah, and David Anan and the rest of his clan, who were Karaites, who called them Karaites, they said, we're going to read the Bible literally. We don't need Rabbinic Judaism, and we don't need your oral Torah that has many laws. So they started to interpret the Bible literally, and that reaction, that caused the Jews at that time, Orthodox Jews, who you call Orthodox today, it caused them to start interpreting it literally as well. That is when literal translations came. 800 years after the death of the alleged Messiah and his resurrection. So this was a reaction, and so we lost. When this happened, we actually lost good interpretation of the Bible. Totally lost it. Because now we're trying to interpret everything literally. But the Bible cannot be interpreted literally. When you start interpreting everything literally, you're going to make many mistakes. Because the Bible is full of symbols, allegories, and it needs to be interpreted majority of the time with the symbols and allegories. And if you don't, you lose out. You don't get the right interpretation. And this is the story of every church and every synagogue today. Because if you go back to the first century, people were not doing that. And we had much better interpretations present of the Bible than we do today. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'd say it's a bad thing. Because we lost a good way of interpreting the Bible. This is why today, instead of being better off, people are worse off. Now, just take the example of Jesus is saying about the mountain. But is he talking about a literal mountain? Are you supposed to throw a literal mountain into the water? Are you supposed to literally move a mountain? Of course, even if you asked a little boy and you said to him, hey, move that mountain over there, he's going to say to you, it's not literal. I can't literally move a mountain, because it's talking allegory, symbolic. And that is what Jesus was saying as well. Symbolically, you are to move that mountain through what? What would you say you're supposed to move the mountain with? Anybody wants to guess? Take a guess. How are you going to move a mountain? Are you going to take diggers and those big machines and take the mountain from one spot to another? How would you like to do it? Faith. Okay, that's a good way. It's a good way, Yehundi, Cameroon. Good way, faith. How else can you move a mountain? Our wonderful human imagination. Okay, anybody else? How would you move a mountain? Anybody else? Let me give you a clue. How did God create the world? How did God create the world? Anyone? Words, right. So if God created the world by a word, then how would you move the mountain? Think about it. Right. Imagination spoke it into being. So when you speak, what are you doing? You're creating something by speech. So how do you move mountains? Through speech. Words. Words create. And if God can create, so can you. Because you are a creation of God. And you are an extension of God today. You are an extension. Don't see yourself as just somebody out there. See yourself as an extension of the living God. Because what are you representing? You are an ambassador to God. If you claim that you are part of Israel, the children of Israel, Bnai Israel, if you are part of Bnai Israel, then you are an extension of God. You are an ambassador of God. Well, if God can create, so can you. There's absolutely no difference. You are supposed to create through your words. Isn't that what God said? Isn't that what Moses said? And we read throughout the Torah these little things. And I can take you back. I can take you back to Bereshith chapter 1. I could take you back over there and I could prove it that you can create through your words. Bereshith bara Elohim, the very first line of Hebrew. One day I was looking through it and I read the whole chapter in Hebrew, and I then sat down and I made a little box, like a little table, and I put all the Hebrew words in there that are associated with creation. And I put them in there and I sent this little plate, this little drawing that I drew, I sent it to my student in Pakistan. I said, can you print this onto a plate? I need this on a plate because this is what's going to create. This is to do the manifestation process. I said, if you look at it, you scan your eyes right to left as you read Hebrew. You don't even need to read those words, what they mean. You just scan it, and that will help you create. It will give you power. Looks like our next door neighbors are doing some drilling or something. Hear this noise time to time. So remember that creation can be done by you. You are able to create. So when Jesus was saying move this mountain. If you believe, move this mountain. Remember what I told you. Whenever you read the word pray in the Bible, if you read it literally, then you're going to think, oh, I got to lift up my hands, or I got to sit down in humility and cross my arms, or something, and then I got to pray. Then I got to say, oh Lord, help me do this. That's your traditional way that you've been taught through churches or maybe synagogues. But the actually what you're supposed to do is you're not supposed to lift your hands up or supposed to close your hands or put them on your chest or wherever. You're supposed to do imagination. That is what it means. To pray is to imagine. So you close your eyes and you imagine. But churches don't teach that today. You see, our people were taught that in the past, how to imagine. And when Jesus speaks about moving mountains, well, let's at least be correct that you cannot, you and I, by strength, by pure muscle power, we can't shift a mountain an inch. It's a solid structure. You can shoot bullets at it, and America proved by shooting down the biggest bomb they had, the Moab, they call it Moab, I believe, and Moab was the biggest bomb they have, and they dropped it on one of the mountains in Afghanistan, and they hardly dented the mountain. Yeah, it made a little crater on it, but hardly moved it. But if the biggest bomb in America can't move a mountain, then do you seriously think that we can by our hands? No, we can't. The truth is that you can move a mountain by imagination. A mountain is typically anything that is in your path, in your way, an obstacle. An obstacle, like my student, he had an obstacle that he couldn't get to a job interview. That's an obstacle, that's a mountain. And he can move it. So I showed him a method of moving it. Just simply get rid of the negativity and he will move the mountain. And it worked. Now, there are other ways. You may have bigger obstacles in your life, bigger than my student here. Maybe you're trying to start a business. Maybe you're trying to buy a home and you haven't got finance for it. Or maybe you're trying to buy a car that you like. So in that instance, well, technically, you're trying to move that mountain. So what do? Well, how about you write it down? You write down an affirmation, and the affirmation might say, I am the owner of such and such car, and I love driving it. That's it. Just a simple affirmation. I am the owner of such and such car, and I love driving it. Maybe you say, I am the owner of a Ford F-150 truck, and I love driving it. Or any other car for that matter. And that affirmation you read every day to yourself, and you imagine it. All your imagination is remember what I said. You run the midbrain activation program, the meditation. You do the midbrain meditation. Allow your brain to be primed to create. And then you sit down and you close your eyes and you meditate, and you see that in your imagination, you start your imagination task, and you see in your imagination you're driving that car, the very car you wrote about. You are now driving it. You are sitting in it. And you might get a phone call from a friend, or maybe that friend is sitting with you in that car, and they are congratulating you, and they're saying, what a beautiful car that you have. And you're saying, thank you. I love driving this car. So you do this back and forth. You do this little imaginative act, back and forth, 3 or 4 times during that one sitting. You do it. And once you feel that you're satisfied with it, then you can stop and move on to the next imaginative act that you have, the next desire. Maybe it's a desire to get a lump sum of money. Maybe it's a desire for something else. So whatever it is, you write it down on your list, and you read it. And it might be money. You might have written a desire, You might be like a recipient of an amount of money. I have received $500,000. That might be a desire. Or it could be $1 million. I have received $1 million. Okay? Let's just say you write a desire that I have received $1 million. So it has to be in the past participle. Mustn't be in the future. Not good to say I will receive it. You should say I have received it already. I have received $1 million. You write it down, you repeat it, you read it daily diligently. Because look, some of you get tired very quickly. Or you get fed up, or you get, you lose interest. Because you're so, so focused on other items that you lose focus on this one that you desire. For instance, what says that you want to have something badly, you want to have something in your life badly, and I'll just go for the simple stuff. You eat breakfast every day. You don't get tired of eating breakfast. Every day you get up, you sleep, you get up, you sit at your table and you want to have that breakfast and you're looking forward to it. For me that breakfast is maybe 2 eggs in the morning. And I look forward to my breakfast every day. I don't get tired of eating 2 eggs and a cup of tea. And you may not get tired of eating your cornflakes and maybe a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, whatever it is you like. You get up in the morning, you're all excited, hey, I'm going to have my breakfast. And you have your breakfast. You see, that's the vigor. And you get up in the morning, you say, I'm going to have dinner, or I'm going to have lunch. Or you might have dinner at night. You might say, hey, today I'm going to make myself fish and chips. Or today I'm going to have, grilled chicken. So you're all looking forward to your grilled chicken and your fish and chips. But what happens when you come down to write your affirmations and read them? Oh, bother. I read it for 5 days, now I'm tired. Now I don't want to read it. See, that's the attitude. The attitude that you should have is just as you're eager and all excited to have that breakfast. You should be all excited to read your affirmations in the morning when you get up. All excited to read it, and you read it. Boom! You go there and you speak it. And you speak it in the air. Remember what I said. You create by speaking it. That is the secret. God spoke the world into existence by speech into the air. He's already given you the formula. You apply that formula in your life now. The I am. The I am is God's name. I am that I am. Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya. I am that I am. Told Moses, go and give that name to the Israelites. I am has sent you to them. That's a very powerful statement in the book of Exodus. Very, very powerful. And you have it today. But how many of you are exercising that power? Probably most of you don't even know it. And some of you that do, you get tired very quickly. But you don't get tired of eating breakfast. You don't get tired of having dinner at night. But you get tired of, I've been reading it for 3 days now and nothing has happened. So I'm going to, maybe I stop and do something else. You must be persistent. And you must be faith. Faith here is about persistence. Sticking with it. Believing in it. Belief means that you believe you already received it. That is true faith. True faith is not, you do it for 5 days and, I'm tired, nothing turned up in 5 days. Maybe, it's not going to happen for me. Maybe it happens for other people and you stop. Then you're on to the next thing. And on to the next, then on to the next, then on to the next. Where does it stop? You get nowhere. Jumping like a frog from leaf to leaf, plant to plant. So, one thing you must tell yourself, you're not a frog. You're not going to jump like a frog. You're going to stick to what you desire. You're going to be diligent. And you're only going to move once you acquire that which you're desiring. Once you acquire your one wish, one desire, then you can move to the next. But remember, scripting is part of the deal. I'm not saying to you that you have to script every day. I'm not saying you have to write it every day. Some of you get tired on that. Oh, my arm gets hurt and my hand hurts. Yeah, but your hand doesn't hurt when you eat your breakfast. Only hurts when you write. So if your hand hurts, if it hurts when you write, so okay, then speak it. Then don't write it, then speak it. But speak it every day. And if those of you who have strong hands don't hurt, then write it. Because remember, I gave you a formula. Write it for 8 days of the first of the month. 1st to the 8th, write it. And some of you may want to write more. I was speaking to a person here in this country, and I told them, I said, you can write it for 15 days, and you can have 15 days off. And you know what they told me? He says, Rabbi, I want to write every day for all the whole month. I said, okay, go for it. Write the whole month. So I said, don't stop. And guess what? That same person came to me. They were writing for a house. They wrote in the present tense. They wrote that I am living in a house in a particular part of the city. They kept writing that for about 3 months. And the 4th month, it happened that they actually moved into that part of the city in a house exactly as they wrote it. That person moved into the house just as they wrote it. And they contacted me. They said, oh, Rabbi, that thing I was writing about, I kept writing about it every day. And I said, good. And the results, as a result, we are now living in that house. Thank you very much, Rabbi, for guiding us. See the result? This is what I mean. My whole point is this. You must write it every day. And I gave you 2 formulas. I gave you formulas. One was that you can write for 15 days on and 15 days off. Or you can write for 14 days on, 14 days off. That was one formula. You can still follow that formula. It still works. Another formula is you write the whole month. You take no break. But that was too much for some people. They're like, oh, I get tired, oh, my hands, my this, my that. They had 15,000 excuses. And I said, okay, don't do it every day. Do it less. But still do it. So then one set of people, I told them to only do it for 8 days of the month. Start at the 1st of the month, do it for 8 days, and then stop. Then take a break for 22 days. I gave them a break for 22 days. Then other people, I said, you can write it for 14 days and take a break of 2 weeks. Then start again. Then the third group, I said to them, write every day, no break for you. Let's see which of these things occur fast, or which is occurring slow, which is occurring fast. And then the result was that I found that the people who were doing it for 8 days, they had a result. People who were doing it for 15 or 14 days, they also had a result. And people who were doing it for 30 days, they also had a result. In other words, all of them got what they wanted. So I was like, okay, I can't criticize the ones doing it for 30 days. I can't criticize the ones doing it for 15. And I can't criticize the ones doing it for 8. But the 8 was the one that was the shortest. They all got result. So coming into this country, the person that I spoke to, they wanted to do it for 30 days. They said, no, I've got to do it for 30 days. I just don't get rest. If I don't do it, I'm not satisfied. It's like I'm missing something. I have to do it. So I said, okay, go ahead. I said, although you don't need to do it for 30 days, but if that's how you feel, if you feel that you're missing something and you have to write, then I encourage you to write it. So they continue to write. And then they came back to me and said, you know what? I got the house I desire. Come to my house. I went to this person's house. Do you know what? I went to this person's house. And it's an affluent part of the city. And I met them there. And they thanked me profusely for that house. They said, you're the one who made it possible for us to move into this house. Very appreciative of what happened. I thanked them. I had a nice cup of tea, had some nice food with them, and I came back. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful human imagination. Wonderful scripting. So I've only got good things to say about scripting. So I would encourage you highly to script. you must script. Because if you do everything else wrong and you do scripting correctly, you will get what you desire. The second way is you act like God acted. You speak it into existence. Now, to speak the thing into existence, what you have to do there is you have to face the north. Remember, face always the north. Find out where the north of your house is. Speak to the north. That is where God's throne is. Whatever you desire, speak it in the north. Speak it every day. Even if you have to speak it 5 times a day, speak it 5 times a day. And that desire will come true as well. I can guarantee you that I have students across the world who have met their desire by just speaking it into the air. Because by speaking, you are creating. So then comes a part of belief. Belief is always going to be at the beginning, because you have to believe that you can create. If you refuse to believe that you can create, how is it going to happen? That means you don't have faith, or you lack it. So in order to move mountains, it is very important there is a process that you got to write. Just as Jesus said, you can move mountains by faith. Faith here, by the way, faith doesn't mean what you and I know, like some kind of, this faith where it's a word, it means to have something or believe in something. No, faith actually means imagination. Let me give you the term of the faith. It's imagination. What did Jesus say? You have little faith. What does that mean? You have little imagination. Remember I spoke about earlier that the Bible is not a literal translation. It is symbolic, and it's very powerful when you get the right symbolic translation. So Jesus was saying to his disciples, start doing imagination. That is what is meaning by faith. You have little faith, you have little imagination. Then he said, have faith, have imagination. Now go and move mountains. Now you get it? This is how you move mountains. I was in America not too long ago. Last week I was in America. And about 2 weeks ago, let's just say 3 weeks ago, when I was in America, I had a ticket to come to the east. And when I went to the airport, they said to me, oh, flight got cancelled because, they're not landing flights over here for whatever operational reasons. So they said, you got to go back, take your stuff back, and come over again after you rebook a new ticket with us, and we'll try and fly you the next time. So I said, okay. I came back. I found them, they gave me a date, and they said to me at the end of the month is your date to fly again. But whilst I was thinking about it, at the beginning of the month, end of the month, I thought to myself, my goodness, 31 days? I've got to wait another 31 days? No way. I'm leaving this city, this country, in the next 2 weeks. I'm leaving it. And I set it in my mind. And I set my mind to be out of that place in 2 weeks. And then Rabbi Kifa, I told him, I said, Rabbi Kifa, I had to come back, and they said flight had been cancelled because of operational reasons. And Rabbi Kifa said to me, I don't see you here for more than 2 weeks. You're definitely not going to fly end of the month. I don't see you flying at the end of the month. And I said, you're right, because I'm scripting that I'm leaving here earlier. And so what happened, 2 weeks, I found another airline, I booked a ticket, and I already knew that my ticket was going to be cancelled the second time. You see, this is how you know foreknowledge. It's called foreknowledge, in advance. So if I had waited 31 days and I've gone to the airport, I would have been second time cancelled. But I said, I'm not allowing that to happen. I'm intervening. And I'm creating for myself a ticket that I'm going to fly in the middle of the month. And I did. I flew out of America in the middle of the month, and here I am. And the plane was almost empty. When I came from that plane in in Chicago. When I climbed that plane in Chicago, I had about 4 seats to myself. Do you believe that? I had 4 seats to myself. I was like calculating the price of 4 seats. I was like, these 4 seats are worth about $5,000. So Baruch Hashem, Yahweh, for 4 seats, I can lie down on them. I literally lay down on those seats. And then I'm going to lie down and rest. And so my point is that I was right. Because I got here, and 2 days later, I get an email from the company, the original company, and you know what they tell me? Your flight has been cancelled. Sorry, sir. So I was like, I already knew it, that they're going to cancel it second time. And then they said, we are very sorry, your flight has been cancelled. We cannot fly you on 31st of July. You don't need to do anything. We'll try and refund your money to you. So, see, if I had just waited, and then I would have got a cancelled seat, then I would have not been able to fly till maybe in August sometime. Of course, due to demand and availability of seat, everybody's trying to get on the plane, then I would have been more difficult. But I used my beautiful human imagination, and I made sure that I got my ticket and I flew out of there and I came back to be with my family on time. That is how we create. Fine example of creation. I could have been like everybody else and sitting back in the queue and waiting and then told, oh, no flight. Then I'd be like, either being angry about it or being sad. But why not be preemptive? I did a preemptive strike instead. I saw myself already in Pakistan long before it even happened, meeting my family at the airport. Just as I saw it, I met them at the airport. Baruch Hashem. That is how you can change your lives. A lot of you people out there today are stuck in rut. Same jobs, same homes, same family, and same old, same old. But you got to change. You got to make some changes. Maybe a new home, maybe a new car, maybe more money in the bank. All of these are good things. They're not bad things. And maybe some of you are happy where you are. And that's okay too. Because if you have extra money, it always helps. It always will help you. It could mean new dresses. It could mean new wardrobe, new carpets, new paint in the house, new vehicle. Money, more money is always a good thing. It's something that you want to happen. Less money is always a bad thing. So, if you're getting a problem of more money, then that's a good problem to have. But you got to create that problem. You got to create it, and you're allowed to create it, and you can create it. So, sit down and decide on what you want. Write it down. That this is what I want. I want $1 million. I want £2 million in my bank. Or I want £5 million in my bank. How am I going to get it? Don't care about how you're going to get it. Now start writing down the affirmation. I have £5 million in my bank. Or I have $5 million in my bank. Then I found, this is what I found, that you can write the affirmations the other way as well, with a why statement. Where you say, why do I have $5 million in the bank? That works too. That works actually faster. So you put a why, and a why is a question. Because what happens is some of you that are dealing with limiting beliefs, you might say that I have $5 million in the bank. And your limiting belief says, no you don't. You only have $50 in the bank. So the limiting belief is counteracting you. So before you even get from A to B, you're having a hard time trying to sort out your limiting belief. So whilst you're trying to sort out your limiting belief, perhaps with the way I explained earlier with the camphor, then what you do is you can always turn it around. You can put the word with why. You can change the statement. You can say, why do I have $5 million in the bank? And when you say, why do I have, then the limiting belief cannot answer that question. It cannot say, oh, no you don't. You can't say that. When you say, why do I have $5 million in the bank? What does the limiting belief say? Or what does your rational mind say? It says, I don't know why you don't. I don't know why. It can't answer that. You see, if you say, I have $5 million in the bank, and the rational mind might say, no you don't, you only have $50 balance. But if you then said limiting, if you remove that limiting belief and you said, why do I have $5 million in the bank? And the rational mind says, I don't know why you have $5 million. He can't answer that question. In other words, it allows that to be filtered through. It allows it to go through the next level. And the next level is the level of creation. So when you say, why do I have something? It gets created. That's the secret. That's what I found in my testing. I tested this with myself, with some of my students, and I asked them to test it, and the results were absolutely fantastic. One of my students, as I explained to you last week, I may have said this, they got a lump sum of cash. I didn't ask them where they got it from. They got a lump sum of cash, but I helped them to configure online a brand new Macintosh laptop. And the cost of that came down to $3,500. And they paid it on their card. Cash payment, by the way. Because of their little lump sum they acquired. And they acquired that through what I taught them. So, if they can acquire it, so can you. And if you're not, then don't be feeling bad about it. Persist. Continue to do what you're supposed to be doing. Continue to do what you're taught. You will also get the money. You will also get your desires. But be persistent. Continue to imagine. Continue to script. Continue to speak in the air. Then you will also get what you desire. This is how I'll encourage you. And this is what I believe is lacking, is that the only thing that lacks in you is not that you're a bad person or you've done something wrong. The only thing that might be that you might get little, as most people do, little tired, a little, issue with persistence, issue with time, and other things. So I say, just as you make time to enjoy your breakfast, just as you make time to enjoy your breakfast, make time to do your scripting and make time to do your speaking in the air. And if you can do that much, that's all I'm asking you. I'm not asking you to, invest $1 million into some unknown investment field. I'm asking you to invest your time, your effort, and you will reap the reward for that, multiple fold. So with that, I've got no idea where Rabbi Kifa is today. I don't know what happened to him. I've got no emails from him and no messages. I can only think that possibly he may have had some home emergency that took him away. So I think that means next time I have to keep an eye out on Pal Talk side. Because we're a totally different time scale now. For me it's night over here. For you guys it's like day over there. So I apologize for the late class start today, because I didn't even know there was no class open today until somebody informed me that the room is not open and Rabbi Kifa is not present. So I will end the session here. There's no Rabbi Kifa today for some reason or another. So he will probably be with you next week. So in the meantime, what I will do is I'll upload this lecture online to to YouTube, and then probably next week Rabbi Kifa will take the class and Rabbi Kifa will lead it, and I might try and record and send the session in, because it seems to be okay today. Surprisingly, we did have a little problem in between, break up. It seems to be okay overall, but see, sometimes I may not get a good bandwidth. I've been struggling with internet over here all week, and I've been trying all different types of internet. Finally today I met a man and I said, you know what, I need to resolve this problem. What is the best internet over here? So he gave me an idea. He said, try this such and such company, and that is supposed to work better in where you live, in that area where you live. So I said, okay. So I got that little new internet today, and it seems to be working okay, but I can't guarantee that it's going to work okay, but because when I travel, I may have problems. So what I tend to do is I tend to record over here, pre-record it, and send it to Rabbi Kifa. So just be aware that if I'm able to be online permanently myself, I will be online. And if not, then I will send in a recording. Either one way or the other, you will see my teaching online at YouTube. One way or the other, it will be there. So enjoy your Shabbat. Be happy. Please do what you're told, because you're all able to create. You're all creators in the small sense, with a capital, with a lowercase c. Because if you were capital C, then you would be all gods. But you're not all gods, but you're all creators. You're creators as extensions of God. See yourself as extensions of God. See yourselves as creators with a lowercase c. And you will all do great, and you'll all do well. And the Master Yahweh will bless you abundantly, take care of you. Have a great week ahead, great Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, and Shalom Shalom to you. From Rabbi Simon Altaf HaKohen on the east side this time. Shem Yahweh. Shabbat Shalom.